Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Aura Spiritual Town Hall meeting. I am super excited to be hosting a conversation today with Dan Rosenfeld, who is our guest from the Solar Rights Alliance. I wanted to talk about solar because recently I saw the attacks on rooftop solar and just in renewables in general because of the blackouts that we just experienced. Also, the mentality that people still have about solar being too expensive and inaccessible for most of us. So I want us to get to a place where we can fight for a solar revolution. And Dan is gonna share more about this with us today. So please have your questions ready. You can, of course, have all your comments and your questions on the chat. And here we are. So Dan, welcome.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. So tell us a little bit about who you are and who is the Solar Rights Alliance.
Yes, thank you. So Solar Rights Alliance is, I think there's an echo, is that right? So we'll just power through. It's the Association of California Solar Users. We believe that everyone has the right to make energy from the sun on their property without unreasonable interference by a utility. We do a bunch of different things. Mostly we keep track of what the politicians and the regulators and the utilities are up to. We alert our network of solar users when there is a threat to their investment or an opportunity to expand solar, and then give people really just meaningful ways to make their voice heard, just like everyone should be able to in our democracy. And there's over 1 million people who have solar in California. So it's really awesome. It's growing. And we're pretty new because it's only been very recently that there's been this many people who can really stand up and defend the right to go solar. So we're a nonprofit. We're very grassroots. One paid person, that's me. Everyone else is, volunteering. About 15,000 people right now who are involved in the network, and we have big plans.
So tell us who's fighting for solar with your organization or just in general right now. Who are those people? How do they look like? Where do they come from?
Yeah, solar, it's amazing. 13 years ago, there was only like 20,000 people in the state that had solar. And because the prices dropped, solar is now everywhere, wherever you go. So you can go and it's out in the Central Valley. It's out in, everywhere you can think of in San Diego County. It's up in Northern California. It's in Central California. It's in the coast. You can pretty much go anywhere and you're going to see a lot of solar. And the kinds of people that have solar really vary. People who own homes, people who live in apartment buildings, businesses, schools, fire stations. So it's not even just, homeowners anymore. And in the last couple of years, especially, the most solar installations are happening in neighborhoods at the median income or less, which I'm really excited about because I want everybody to have solar, regardless of what your disposable income is like. And I think especially for people where those energy bills are really killing them in their household budget, I want them to have a way to control those energy bills and cut it down to zero if they can.
Yeah, and something interesting that I see all around is that people think that solar is just for certain people. That is not for all of us. And in the work and in the movement around creating a world that is powered by 100% renewables and a world that is going to protect our environment, a world where we can have energy that we can produce and sell the excess back to our utilities. Sometimes the idea that everybody can have solar is really foreign or it's inconceivable, So in LA, for example, we have a solar for renters program, and I don't know if people people from the audience knew that. If you know that we have a solar for renters program, put a little heart in the comments or let us know. What is the conversations that you have heard, or are there a lot of renters that are participating with you in your organization?
There are renters, and there's a dynamite organization called Grid Alternatives that's like working day and night to get solar to renters, to get them in multifamily homes, to make sure that all new multifamily homes have solar on it, to help landlords get the solar on there and make it as easy as possible to get it to landlords. Not as much as there should be, though. And so I think it's really incumbent upon state officials who are making solar policy to really figure out how can we get landlords to put solar on and get those savings directly to the renters, and and do that as much as we humanly possibly can. But there are a lot of renters who already do have solar. And I'll give you an example of one thing that I'm really excited about. Up in Oakland, there's a really nasty power plant in Jack London Square. It's powered by jet fuel. As you can imagine, it's located in one of the poorest neighborhoods in Oakland, so the pollution is awful. And there's now a plan to shut that gas plant down, that jet fuel powered gas plant down, and instead to install solar and battery storage in the neighborhood around that plant, which is primarily multifamily homes. So those folks in those apartment buildings are going to be able to save money. They're going to be able to actually put new solar power onto the electrical grid and reduce the need, or even eliminate the need to even run that power plant. So the air is going to get cleaner too, and we can fight climate change. And that's the kind of like visionary thinking that we could just be supercharging that right now. If state policymakers get their act together and stand up to utilities, we're trying to just actually do the opposite.
So let's dive in on that conversation a little, farther. So welcome. If you're just joining in, I'm having a conversation with Dave Rosenfeld. He is the executive director of the Solar Rights Alliance. This is a statewide and I think a regional organization for people that want to fight for solar and defend solar. I guess my question to you is, Dave, where are these issues that utilities are seeing? Like, why don't we have more deployment of solar? Why the attacks?
Right. Yeah. This is a great question. This gets to the heart of it. So just to be super duper clear,
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, good. Sorry.
I know that you're trying to connect back to Instagram, but that's fine. You can keep talking to us.
All right. I'm not going to get distracted by any of that. Just to be super duper clear, solar right now, it's keeping the lights on. It's protecting the environment. It's cutting people's energy bills. It's win, 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 win. The utilities generally don't like solar because it cuts into their monopoly. They're used to having that monopoly. And so they have been, for the last few years, doing an all-out fight to try to get rid of solar. And they do that in a variety of different ways. I'll give you a few examples. Right now, the SoCal Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric, and PG&E are lobbying the State Public Utilities Commission to cut the main policy that has made solar grow. It's called net metering, and it's the program that allows people who have solar to give their solar to their neighbors, their extra solar to their neighbors, and get a little bit of a credit for that. It's amazing, and it's one of the reasons why people can go solar. And they want to cut that and strangle it, down to something that's really small or meaningless. We see the utility in Sacramento, which is publicly owned, SMUD, trying to do the same thing. Anytime that there is legislation to try to actually supercharge solar, to try to help make battery storage something that everybody can get, the utilities have their lobbyists that are in the legislature trying to basically kill that kind of legislation. So they have a lot of lobbyists. They have a lot of political power. And it's all a self-interested thing for them. That's not what they say, but that's what they're doing. And so that's the fight.
Why are people, and some of the viewers have stated even before we started the broadcast, that solar is too expensive for that solar is just too expensive for us to have. That's why there is not more deployment of solar in our communities. Is this still the case?
I mean, solar is so much cheaper than it was 15 years ago, right? Like we have so many members who, when they hear that solar is something for the wealthy, they go, I'm not wealthy. How is that possible that you could even say that? You can right now in most parts of the state, you can get solar without any money down. And they'll basically put the solar on your roof and you get then a huge cut in your energy bill. That's happening right now. Now, the question is, can we make that even cheaper? Can we get, and every time somebody goes solar, the price goes down. That's really the big thing. So it's incumbent upon state officials to keep doing what we're doing right now. Every time every year we get 100,000 people that go solar, the price goes down a little bit more. And so when utilities go in and they see that that's what's happening, that every year more and more people are going solar, every year the price is dropping, which means more and more people go solar, and they want to basically stop that kind of growth. And that's one reason why they try to get rid of net metering and hit solar users with fees and that kind of thing. So if it's too, everyone has to make their own individual choice as to whether, it's the right thing for them. And that's not my place to tell people that. But there are incredible options out there to finance solar right now, including paying nothing down. And that was unheard of even just 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. How, in your opinion, and in Los Angeles, we have something that was kind of really sad, at least when I found out in my first, in the first part of my work around being a commissioner for the Department of Water and Power. And some of the first meetings, I found out that a lot of the middle class and in more wealthy areas of Los Angeles got solar at the expense of low-income folks. So because everybody pays to the bill, and only the people that had a rooftop that was designed, that was good enough for solar, only the folks. And if you can, when you have a moment, join me please on Instagram because I'm missing you here. And only people that could afford it, that had good credit, could adopt to solar in Los Angeles. So I'm wondering how can we mitigate that kind of inequity that is happening in a lot of other places. In Los Angeles, we have been trying to design programs that deploy more solar to low-income communities to compensate, but sometimes it's not as easy. So how can we bring equity to our solar revolution?
Yeah. So one thing I want to just kind of go back a step is utilities will often say that solar actually increases costs on non-solar users. And I want to really strongly say that's just not the case. And here's why. Because every time somebody goes solar, they reduce their burden on the grid. On August 14th, we have this on our website. That was just one of the big days where the power was going out. And you can actually see how bad it would have been had there not been solar. Solar actually was like something like 5,000 megawatts of energy. Solar took 5,000 megawatts of energy off the grid at 3 p.m. on August 14th.
Right.
And that's real money. And that happens all year. When you go solar, you're not using the grid as much. And that means that the utility doesn't have to spend as much money maintaining the power lines, building new power lines, real money. The state estimates in 2018 alone, the state saved $2.6 billion because it didn't have to do as much power line maintenance as it would have had thanks to solar and also energy efficiency. That's just one example, but there's a bunch of other examples where solar actually is reducing the cost of running the grid, and everybody benefits when that happens. Utilities, oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say that that's the very concept of energy independence and energy self-reliance. That if you, like, for example, right now in California with the fires, with a possible big earthquake, with an emergency, like anything that happens, even in Los Angeles at least, even when there's a little bit of extra wind, we see powers shut offs and power outages. So having even a microgrid, which is something that I would love to to discuss with you further, it seems like this is what solar democracy or renewable energy or democratizing renewables looks like, so that we can all have them, not just some people. So please go ahead.
Yes, no, I think you've got a really good, those power outages, billions of dollars in economic losses, happen every time, on a on a statewide scale. So when utilities say, it makes me so angry when I hear utilities say, oh, solar people, they're just taking their ball and going home and then basically sticking everybody else with the cost of running the grid. And then we're saying, we're making it cheaper to run the grid for you. And that's helping everybody. We're lowering everyone's energy bills. The fact that you're not passing those savings on to customers is because you guys, and I'm not talking about LADWP because it's a nonprofit, but the IOUs, because you're greedy and you're just trying to stick the blame on somebody else. So I think, that's the key thing here. But your point is still totally right, which is like, we need to make solar even more affordable. We need to get it in the hands
and
of,
accessible.
right, right. And so, and that means how do you get it onto multifamily homes? Because most people who are low income live in apartments. They're not owning their own home.
And most people right now, I mean, we're incentivizing more dense development. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So it can be a total win-win, but there are real barriers and obstacles to making that happen. And it's not just subsidies and money. There should be more of that as well. But I'll just give you an example to go up to Sacramento. There is a really simple way to get it to allow renters in multifamily homes to take advantage of solar if a landlord installs it. Okay. It's called virtual net metering.
Net
I don't need to
metering.
get into but it's virtual. So it's a little bit of an accounting trick. And actually PG&E allows it. And it's a way to basically only have 1 meter rather than like 20 meters for each customer, which saves a bunch of money and just makes it super easy. SMUD won't allow that. SMUD is the utility in Sacramento. We have asked them, we have lobbied them, we have done everything we can. They don't do it. And when you ask them why, there is no good answer. So you just have to conclude they just don't want more people to go solar because there's just no good answer. And so
the same thing happens with DWP. And if you can let's just stay there for a moment with the virtual net metering, because I want everybody to understand that this is the key that is going to open the kingdom for multifamily homes, buildings to go solar. So without that, we're not going to enter that beautiful place where everybody can have a solar panel, even if you're a renter or even if you live in a multi-family home. So I don't know if maybe you want to, maybe we should explain a little bit what is virtual net metering to the people that are listening.
I love the way you just said it. Virtual net metering is the keys that unlock the kingdom. This really wonky term that you're never going to remember, virtual net metering, but you will remember it's the keys that will unlock the kingdom. So if you don't remember anything,
we need that key to open the kingdom.
That's right. That's right. I love it. So in short, here's basically the way it works is you're a landlord, you put solar on the roof. Okay. Now there's all this extra solar energy, and there's solar energy that's going into the apartment building, but there's also extra solar energy that's going out. And we want to give that to the neighbors so that they can use, and there should be a credit. That credit should go to each of the renters equally so that they can cut their power bill. But the problem is a lot of the utilities like LADWP and SMUD say, oh, well, to do that, let's say there's 20 renters, you got to put in now 20 new meters. Well, nobody's going to do that because that costs thousands and thousands of dollars. There's an easier way to makes no sense, because all you can do is just go, okay, I got 20 renters here and I got a total bill credit of $1,000. Just multiply 1,000 by 20, put it on the piece of paper, and everybody shares in the thing. 1 meter.
Right.
And it's so simple. Even PG&E does it. And yet SMUD and LADWP are digging in their heels. And this is it's a bureaucratic thing. It has nothing to do with subsidies. If you're a conservative, listen to this, and you hate government subsidies, we're telling you, this is just pure red tape. And if we got rid of it, it would unlock solar for potentially millions of low-income people and just people who live in apartment buildings.
So here it is, one attack on solar. We're speaking to Dave Rosenfeld from the Solar Rights Alliance. Please send your questions in the comments. Share your love. If you believe that this is something that other people should be aware and listening to, forward this to some friends so we can have a rich conversation. So what are some other attacks besides utilities, or would you say municipal utilities, like LADWP is a municipal owned, like a public utility together with SMUD? What are some other attacks? Let's tackle another attack and see how we can resolve it.
Let's talk about it. Yeah. Well, let's see. There's fees, and there's different kinds of fees. Let me move away from LADWP for a second, and then we can come back because I want to just talk about the worst of the worst of the worst first, which was, and I want to go back to SMUD. This is like a competition, who's the worst. Although San Diego Gas and Electric tried to do this too. Is SMUD last year tried to hit every solar user with a monthly fee, a new monthly fee of up to $60 a month, just for having solar. And they were going to do it for
okay, wait, let me bring you back. There you go. Keep going.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
All right. So, like I was saying, SMUD tried to hit every solar user in the Sacramento area with a $60 a month fee just for having solar. It would have been retroactive, so it would have been people who already have solar. Just in the couple of weeks that was out there, people were canceling home sales. They were going to buy a solar home, but they said, I'm not going to do it. People were wondering their investment was going to be screwed. It was going to just completely end the solar market. Fortunately, there was a backlash and SMUD backed off. But to this day, they still won't then just say, we'll never do that again. And in fact, they lobby in the legislature to kill legislation that would end that. San Diego Gas and Electric tried to do something similar, where they were basically going to increase the fee, the fixed monthly fee. They were going to quadruple it to about like $40 to $50 a month from like around $10. And they were blaming solar users for that. So that's an example of fees. LADWP right now, we're in the middle of this, but they, a couple of months ago, we heard that they were going to charge between $900 up to $3,000 or $4,000 just to connect your solar system to the grid. And again, even Southern California Edison only charges $75 for that. Now, they're walking it back to their credit, and we're in the middle of discussing it, but the fact that we're even having this conversation right now with all of the problems that California has and the ways that solar and storage can solve it just boggles my mind. So fees, lots and lots of fees.
So fees are a real issue, and I think a lot of folks in the audience are asking, what can they do? So Dave talked about a couple of different players that I want to make you all aware so that we're in the same page here. So there is your local utility and their board members, right? And, you know, in case of LA, it's LADWP and their local board members. And in the case of other utilities, you also have board members. But there is also the Public Utility Commission, who regulates utilities. And also we have the California Energy Commission. So maybe these agencies are new to you guys, but these people are what is causing your bill to be the way it is. So whether you're happy paying what you're paying and you think it's great and you hope nobody ever touches it, or whether you're outraged about the amount of money that you pay, all of these agencies have something to do with the amount of money that you pay for your bill, for the fees for solar, another attack, you know, on solar, and how much we pay. So as much as you don't maybe want to hear it, and then you maybe don't care, these are very important actors. And again, they hold that key. They hold that key to the kingdom of solar, of making more accessible. Any other players that we need to keep in mind in terms of bringing more solar to our communities, to our cities, and to the world in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've listed the folks that are really in the nitty gritty, and I'll just say, I'm really glad you mentioned these, you know, local utilities and these regulatory bodies, because generally the public doesn't know very much about them, and actually doesn't know that they can influence them, but you can, and because so few people do, your voice has an outsized impact. So we're telling people all the time, if you get on the Solar Rights Alliance list, this is a plug. Go to solarrights.org.
And I'm gonna. The website is coming up.
It's coming. Just scroll it, write it down, or
there it is. There it is.
We'll tell you when the Public Utilities Commission or the Energy Commission or some of these local bodies are making decisions, and give you a way with which you can directly make your voice heard, either through written comments, actually verbal comments. When we're out of the pandemic, you can actually do it in person, and we'll connect you with all of that. So your voice really does matter, and we have seen it make a difference. But I'll add, the state legislature makes big decisions, and you have a local assembly member and you have a local senator, and they are from your community, and we can help you talk directly to them about how you feel, and give you, you know, tips on how to make sure that your interests are on their radar. So there's that. The governor, before I get to the governor, then obviously in the city of LA, which is like one of the biggest cities in the world,
the second largest city in this country.
That's right. And so we have our city, our commission, we have our mayor, and obviously we know our mayor is really big on climate change.
Yeah.
He wants to close down those power plants. And so if he hears that there's things that might get in the way of that, well, you let him know that, and that'll have an impact. And the same thing with your commissioners. But I would say the most important person is Governor Newsom, and because he runs the state. He's also, for most people out there, the only one that most people remember is our elected official, and the buck stops with him. And while we think he gets it somewhat, it is true that he could do a lot more right now to be telling the story of how solar and battery storage can be cutting energy bills, can be keeping the lights on, can be getting us towards those climate change goals. And he's not doing enough. I'll be honest, he's not, and he should do more.
So we need to push the governor. We have a mayor that is friendly, but we need to hold him accountable.
Mhm.
We have public utilities. We have private utilities. But I think what we're trying to say here is that your voice deeply, deeply matters, and that now with Zoom and all these live streams, you can definitely get involved and voice your concerns, because this is super, super important. So again, we're talking to Dave Rosenfeld from the Solar Rights Alliance. We're talking about the attacks on solar and how do we fight for a solar revolution. I wanted to really bring this conversation together so that we can all be educated and get fired up and go out there and continue, the fight to bring more solar to our communities. Post your questions, share your comments. I wanted to ask you about the fossil fuel industry, and they orchestrated a clear attack on renewables and on solar these past blackouts
Mhm.
and in California.
Yep.
And they blame solar for the blackouts.
Mhm.
Let's untangle that and let's tell people how the how the fossil fuel industry are actually the very people that are bringing direct attacks to renewable energy.
Yeah. Yeah. This one is so. Here's the truth. We don't have all the facts yet, but the big outages that happened like 2 weeks ago basically was because a gas plant failed and the state didn't have a backup plan. Um, Here's the thing: is this is in the New York Times today? Is when that all went down, and then the state was scrambling to go, oh no, what do we do? They basically begged the solar industry to help out. They went directly to the solar industry and said, we know that you have all these people that have solar, and a lot of that energy is stored in a battery. Would you ask your customers to give that stuff that's in the battery back to the grid, because we desperately need it? And on August 15th alone, over 30,000 batteries were discharged into the grid for about 300 megawatts, which saved the state's butt on that day. And had they actually had a plan and had valued solar and battery storage before all that went down, there would have been about 500 megawatts of energy on demand to go back into the grid every single day during that period, which is more than the amount that gas plant that went down would have produced. So it's total bunk. Solar saved the state's butt. And we have charts and graphs to show how much worse this would have been if you didn't have all the solar and you didn't have the batteries. And had the state a year ago anticipated this happening, we could have actually avoided all the mess that went down a couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and last week we had a conversation with Bernadette from CALSA, and she also explained to us that in a lot of the calculations that the state does for the amount of energy that we need, renewables and solar is not accounted, because supposedly we can have solar at night because they don't count battery storage or the energy that we can store right now. So there's definitely a lot of stuff that make almost no sense to me in the way that we're accounting for our energy and how we're utilizing our power, especially when it comes to renewables. I want to talk about distributed generation.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you that are tuning in and maybe don't know what this term means, it's the idea that we can have a mix of energy and in basin in an area that can be deployed distributed. So right now we have, the way that we produce our energy, we have a gas plant or a fossil fuel plant or a coal plant somewhere. Typically is in a native land, so it's an indigenous people's land, sadly, and that brings energy to a city, and that's how we power. So distributed generation will create a lot of many different grids that connect to each other, so we don't have to depend on one that comes from from far away or from one place. How is distributed generation helping us to fight for a solar revolution?
Right. So this is the future. What you're describing. I mean, this is it. This is the vision, and we're not. This is in 5-10 years. This could change California. So the idea is, if we can help more people get solar, and also critically a battery. So you got the solar up top, you got the battery in the garage, whatever. Then you basically have a bunch of clean energy any time of the day, anytime you need it. And the customer, the person, is probably going to want to use that for themselves.
Dave, keep going.
Okay,
We
I'm
have a
going.
lot of other people watching. Yeah, as you have tracking
Sorry.
on Instagram.
So the customer,
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Okay. You got me. I'm here. The people would be willing to share that extra energy if the state would actually just compensate them a little bit for that extra energy they're giving back to the grid. Now try to imagine that's one person, but then when you have, let's say, 1 million people or 2 million people or 3 million who have solar and a battery, it becomes a system unto its own. And that's what they're doing already in Oakland. I was talking about this before, and I want to come back to that. They're going to shut down a jet-fueled power plant by installing solar and battery storage in the apartment buildings and single-family homes around this power plant, so that the people collectively in those neighborhoods are going to basically be the power plant. It's actually called a virtual power plant. And
yeah,
you can do that with a neighborhood, you can do it with a city, you can do it with a region, and you can do it with the whole state. We could take 3 million solar powered batteries and panels and turn that, think of that as like 100 megawatts of energy, and you could avoid building gas plants. And because it's in a battery, you can use it during the day, you can do it during the night, you can do it whenever you need to. And so it's completely reliable and it's completely clean, and it cuts people's energy bills. So we're actually making the people get the benefit of the clean energy revolution, not just some gigantic utility, with a headquarters out of state.
Dave, when you have a moment, just join us back on Instagram. But
Okay.
we're talking to Dave Rosenfeld. He's gonna join us back on Instagram. But
Sure.
you guys are watching live here on Facebook and all over my other social media channels. We're talking about the attacks on solar and how we can fight for the solar revolution, not just in Los Angeles but everywhere. So we have been really demystifying the different factors that made that fight against solar. And right now we're discussing what is distributed generation and how that can how that can help us to continue the deployment of more and more and more solar. So you're back on Instagram. Welcome back.
Yeah, it just happens. I leave, I come back. I'm really loving this conversation, so I'm getting mad at my phone for being all finicky on me, but here I am again. I'm psyched.
I think it's the internet connection, but no worries. Things happen, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, and this is what happens.
Yeah,
so quick question for you now that we're talking about the pandemic. How has COVID-19 and the coronavirus affected this solar revolution?
Yeah, well, if there's one thing the pandemic has taught us, it's that we need to help people become more self-reliant, right? We're sheltering in place. We have to really rely on ourselves and our family members. And obviously, I'm a community guy. I want to rely on my neighbors, but we also have to rely on ourselves. And we have to become more self-reliant so that we can help our neighbors and we can help our family members and our community. And so being able to keep the lights on, being able to cut your energy bill so you can devote that critical amount of money if you don't have a job to something else, being able to help the community keep the lights on, distributed energy, just like we were talking, this makes solar and battery storage even more important. So what's happening right now in the industry is really interesting. I was calling a bunch of installers today up in the Bay Area for a variety of reasons, and they were telling me their phone is ringing off the hook. People are interested in batteries. And in fact, they have more work now than they've ever had before. So now think about that for a second. We're in the middle of an economic crisis and a pandemic, and yet still people are seeking to make a fairly large investment to protect themselves. So then what that makes me think of is, okay, well then who's being left behind here? Who's not going to be able to do that? So this is exactly the moment that if I was Governor Newsom, if I was the PUC, I'd be thinking, clearly people want this and clearly people need it. And clearly this is good for everybody. How do we supercharge it? How do we help make it? Let's think of this as a huge infrastructure project, just like building a bridge. We want to build a virtual power plant. We want to build the microgrids. We want to build that distributed generation that you're talking about. This is the moment. And the pandemic, it's a lesson. So we can learn it or we cannot.
And I founded an organization called Ready to Help. We're a mutual aid community network. And one of the things that we're working on is the next, influencing the next stimulus package, and how we want that stimulus package to be renewable, to be green, to invest in, to do investments on the renewable energy economy, that we can put people back to work by them installing solar and doing all of the things related to to the transition. How can we transition workers that had a career on fossil fuel to renewable energy as well? That's very important. There is a whole community that depends on these jobs, and how do we make sure that these jobs have excellent, workings rights causes. So I'm glad that you're mentioning that, because the stimulus, we all need to fight for a good stimulus that benefits working class people, but also that is renewable and that is green and that is moving us forward to protecting our planet into a world with 100% renewable energy.
That's right. Yeah. You know what I love about the way you talk about it and the work that you're doing is it's about empowering people to be a part of the solution just as much as it is helping them solve their own problem, right? Like that you're giving people tools to be able to solve their immediate needs, not just now, but in the long term, so that then they're stronger and they're more resilient and they can raise their children with more peace and security. They can help their neighbors rather than having to worry about all these basic needs. I mean, it's just win, 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 the way you describe it. And I think that's just great.
Absolutely. I want to bring up a question that is coming up from Twitter from Howard. He's asking, or he's saying, why is it so hard to convince people that solar does not cost more? And that paying, to your utility, in this case for him, the LADWP, is usually less. And with solar, you'll know how much you pay. So I guess the core of this question is, why is it so hard to convince people that solar doesn't cost more? Because people still have this idea that solar is more expensive. So
Right.
how? Why is it so hard? Like, why people keep thinking this?
Well, it depends. I think it's a glass half full and a glass half empty kind of thing, to be honest, because I see this and I go, people are getting solar. 1 million Californians have installed solar, 100,000 people every single year. So many people are doing it that it's actually moving the market and dropping down the price. The median income right now, the most solar is getting installed in neighborhoods with a median income of $50,000 or less. So, I look at this and I go, we're just getting started. This is the beginning. This is like 13 years ago, there was only like 20,000 people in the state who had solar. That's nothing in a state of 40 million. So I think people are being convinced, and it's happening more every day. But nonetheless, I get the point of the question, which is there's still a lot of people that are like, I'm not so sure I want to do that. I'm not sure of the savings.
It's too expensive. It's more expensive than everything else.
That's right. So, remember that you have a lot of financing options. So let's just break it down, some really basic facts. Most people can get solar in a variety of different ways. The way that I think most people think about it is you buy it. You either pay cash for a system or you take out a loan, to put the system in. And so if you think that you don't have that kind of cash or you don't want to take on that kind of loan, I think a lot of people go, I can't do it. But there's other options for you as well. There's something called a power purchasing agreement. And I've met so many people who have this. And it's a great option if you don't have a lot of cash, but you want solar. Now, the way it works is that the company will put the solar on your roof. They will own the system. And they will essentially be a second utility. The difference between the solar utility company and the other utility is that you're going to be paying a fixed price for the solar energy that comes down from your roof that's cheaper than the energy that you're going to buy from the utility, and it's fixed. It won't go up as much, and it's basically a contract you're going to have with the solar panels on your roof for 20 years. And the savings will be a little less than if you just bought it outright. But if you don't have the cash to buy it outright, you're powering clean energy, you're saving money on your electricity bill in a pretty big way, and you get some of that peace of mind because you're locking in your energy bill and reducing it not just now, but over the long haul. And that's an option that sometimes people aren't, totally aware of. And so we always encourage people, look into it. You got to make your own decision for what works for you. But there's definitely ways you can get solar if you don't have a lot of cash on hand, and that is one of them. And we always encourage people, get 3 bids. So our website, solarrights.org, if you go to the top, there's a little button that says Consumer Guide. And we have a bunch of articles there if you're just starting out and you're not sure how to get started, that'll give you a little bit of a window in. And we always
There is
say,
also an organization called Pick My Solar,
mhm,
which is kind of like if you travel for cheap, like I do, I go to kaya.com, right? And they kind of show you all of the airlines and which one is the cheapest. So Pick My Solar is kind of like the Kaya for solar energy.
right.
So if
Yep.
you want to know, if you want to have a competitive quote, if you own a home and if you want to have solar, you can go to Pick My Solar.
Very reputable website. A lot of people have used it. And we'll just say, get 3 bids, at least 3 bids. Don't go with just one, get 3. Because you know how it goes. Sometimes the one that's the cheapest may not be the best. Sometimes the cheapest is the best, but it's good to get 3 bids.
Yeah. I have another question from the audience coming from Facebook. So she's asking, what incentives does an apartment owner or a landlord have to install solar on their buildings? This is
Yeah.
a really good question. Really good question. Go for it.
Yeah, so there's a state program. It's had different names over the years. SOMA is now the name of it. It's also been called MASH. And you can find information about it by going to the California Public Utilities Commission website and getting more info. You could also give us a call and we'll help walk you through it and connect you with people. And there are, if the units are, primarily serve people with less, low amounts of disposable income, then those incentives are available. Now, you got to qualify. There's a bunch of red tape. That's part of what we want to get rid of. But they have totally helped get solar on apartment buildings and serving people who live there. There's also an organization called Grid Alternatives, and they spend a
Yes.
lot of time doing this. So we should give a shout out to Grid. So if you're a
Yes.
landlord and you're interested, give those guys a call too.
They're amazing. Grid Alternatives is so amazing. They do a lot of install for low income folks at no cost while they're trained folks on how to install solar.
Yep.
And how to work in the solar industry at no cost for them. So they work with folks for reentry. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful organization. I have another. I don't know if you see my comments on the side, Dave. So I have a question here from someone on Instagram,
Okay.
and they're asking, what are the rules when making your own solar system? Like as you making your own, or like installing your system? If you can, Ivan, if you can clarify a little bit of the question. But yes, go for it.
I'm going to think that they're thinking of like a do-it-yourself kind of system. Does that seem right?
I'm assuming. I mean, I can read this in 2 ways. One is, the cities have their own regulations. So when you purchase your solar system, it needs to be inspected by the firefighters,
Mhm.
by the building and safety. So I'm thinking that maybe that's a way to interpret this question. But what are your rules when installing yourself, or a company installs the solar for you, Ivan? Ivan, if you can uh, give us a little clarity on your question. He said, what are the rules when installing your own solar system? I guess
Yeah.
that's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
A do-it-yourself system. Well,
Yeah.
that's yeah, that's a whole ball of wax, my friend. I'm not even going to get started with that. There is websites and books and people who this is what they do, and there are companies that will actually, for a consulting fee, guide you through a do-it-yourself system. So my advice there is use the interwebs, but I probably can't help you that much. Do-it-yourself is totally something. We have some members who do it. Most of
I
us, we're just trying to get by with a screwdriver.
Yeah. I mean, Ivan, this is a really good question that actually ignited in me that I might need some folks from maybe a local the electricians, or that you might want to connect with. I need to bring maybe to one of my VTH, maybe a member of a union, so that they can explain more or less how to do it. But I do know that it's quite difficult to navigate all the permitting around solar, which I will say that's another attack on solar.
Yes.
Making the permitting and all the inspections difficult to navigate. That definitely is another attack on solar, because that is something that it should be very, very accessible and easy to handle. So I don't know if you have any other comments around permitting and inspections and such.
Ooh, yeah.
Dan, Dave, please go for it.
Yeah. This is probably LADWP's biggest sin, really. You know,
Yeah.
they're not attacking net metering, really. Good for them. That's to their credit. But their permitting and inspection process is really old and out of date. And it drives up the cost. It delays the projects. And if they fix that, LA really, I mean, LA already is a leader just by being so big. But if LADWP really fixed it, and the mayor really prioritized working with LADWP to streamline their processes for interconnection and permitting and that kind of thing, that would be huge.
So
So
another thing that we need to advocate for in
absolutely,
LA, guys.
and it'll make a big difference. We're a big city; everything's hard. We understand, but look, this is a big problem. There are installers that just won't do business in the city of San Jose. San Jose, this huge city, so much sun, we could be doing so much solar. And there's installers that just won't do business because the city is such a mess and it's the worst bureaucracy ever. It's just so tragic to hear that. There's people who could be saving money, who could be, helping contribute to fighting, cutting pollution and helping keep the lights on. And just because of red tape, we can't do it.
And this is why I like to remind everyone that in November we have elections. And please use your vote wisely and support candidates that are for fighting climate change, candidates that support renewable energy, candidates that don't take money from the fossil fuel industry, so that when they represent us, they can represent our best interests. So I want to remind everyone that I ran for office recently here in Los Angeles for city council, and that was a big piece for me. I wanted to resolve all these issues that I saw firsthand as I was a commissioner for LADWP. I saw the red tape. I saw the unwillingness. I saw the mentality, the culture that is so hard to change. And we are in the era of change. If anything, COVID-19 taught us is that we must adapt and change and smile. And now that we have that opportunity, we need to continue pushing the newer generation. All of us need to work together in order for us to make whether it's our city, our state, our country, and the world more renewable friendly.
Amen to that. And you have done such an awesome thing by just showing people that energy democracy, that this whole thing that is solar and clean energy, it's something for everybody, and that everybody can actually take a little bit of the power into their own hands. You served on LADWP, you ran for city council. It's inspiring people. There's a woman in Sacramento who's actually running for the SMUD board. The SMUD is an elected board. The utility is run by her name is Fatima Malik, and she is running, and she's been inspired by these kinds of fights and says, you know what, we need more people. We need more young people who are getting involved in this and running for office. And so, I think you have been an inspiration to many people realizing this is my fight too. And this isn't just something for engineers to sit in a back room, with protractors and compasses. But this is actually something that people can get involved in, no matter where you're from, and no matter whether you have solar or you don't have solar, no matter where you live. This is all of our fight, and there's all kinds of reasons why we want to be involved in this.
Well, Dave, I think we are on top of our time together. What are we leaving people with? What's their homework? What's all of our homework? How can we support you? How can we get involved? What's our next step? What are we doing?
Okay, I love that question. I'm an organizer. You're an organizer. I'm an organizer. You never get off the phone until you do the ask, right? So
Absolutely.
A couple of things. First off, you see the website listed there. If you like what you hear, you want to stay engaged in this stuff, just go there. It's really easy to sign up and get on our list. We keep it really old school.
Go follow Solar Rights Alliance. Go follow them in all of the social media so you can start getting activated and share.
That's right. Share it and share and share and share everything through every way that you possibly can. That's number one. Number two is, if we ask you to write a letter or to make a phone call or to show up and testify in person, really consider doing it. We all have busy lives. Politics can seem kind of scary, but I'm telling you right now, your voice matters. And the more that you do it in person, the more that you pick up the phone and call the decision maker, to show up at a hearing, even virtually in the day of the pandemic, that really matters. So I want to really encourage you to not just sign up and stay behind the screen, which is really important, sharing and sharing and sharing, but to also consider stepping out from behind the screen. And we can help you, give you the moves if you've never done it before, and to show you how to do it very, very effectively. Then, of course, vote like your life depends on it. I don't really care what your party is and what your affiliation is, but we need an active, engaged democracy. We need every vote to be counted. But these, we need elected officials and regulators to understand that people who care about the issues that we discussed here are voting, and that they need to be paid attention to.
Thank you so much, Dave, for joining us today. I really, really had a great time in our conversation. I hope that you return. And next time when you have an exciting campaign, let us know. We're here to ready for anything that you need. There's tons of stuff that people can get involved. So please get involved. The website for the Solar Rights Alliance is out here. You guys can always go to my website or to the link in my bio for my Instagrammers and get involved. I always have my newsletter, and there is always actionable items that you can take. Thank you, Dave, so much, and you have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Really wonderful to be here. Really appreciate the time. Thank you. Have a great afternoon yourself.
Thank you. And that was it, you all. I had such a good time speaking to Dave and with the Solar Rights Alliance. If you guys want more information, you can always reach out to me, or you can also, like I said, go to my website or to go to the link in the bio. If you missed this conversation and if you want to see it from the beginning, it's always hosted in all of my social media channels. I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon and that you enjoy very much this weekend holiday. Have a great day. Bye-bye.